I am on the clock in 19 slow drafts right now. The shortest timer until an auto is, I think we're under 15 minutes. We're going to make those picks, talk about my builds and other best ball strategy, and we'll spin the wheel. But of course, you guys don't know what that's for or what's even on the wheel, since this is the first edition of the Stealing Signals podcast. Let's get it. What is up, guys? Welcome in. I am pumped to be doing this. Before we talk too much about what this is going to be, what the stream will be, we got to make some picks because otherwise I'm going to time out. So we are going to be doing some slow drafting. For those of you who don't know, I am not able to draft in Washington State. Oh man, they're organized in the app. Here we go. We got 11:55 on this Chihuahua. Let's jump into this. I'm still like, I don't even draft on the desktop. I do everything in the app. But this is my team here. This one was an AJ Brown, Marvin Harrison. I took Jalen Hurts, Cooper Kupp. Not a lot of receivers have gone in this round. I haven't even started anybody. I don't have anybody in the queue. But at pick, I didn't even look at this. You'd think that I would have been prepared. At pick 59 in a 1-0-3-0, I would consider Kittle here as well. Guy in the turn is not taking a tight end. He's a badge bro. He's got only two receivers. He could go receiver or tight end pretty easily. I can't talk that much about all my strategy because these are slows. That's all going to just get used against me probably. I'm going to take Xavier Worthy in this draft here. You guys are going to see me fumble around on the site. I don't know necessarily exactly what I'm doing. Let's see what my other timers are in the app because that's going to be easier for me. 21 minutes, 22, and 36. So let's do those three, and then we'll chat a little bit more. Let's see. Live. No, I want drafts. I want active. All right, let's find our other ones. This is one of the short ones. This is an eliminator. We can talk a little bit of eliminator strategy today as well. A fun format. I went Tyreek Hill 101 in this. I didn't know if this draft was going to show up on my first stream. This is interesting. We're going to talk about eliminator because I think this is maybe too small as well. I think in the eliminator, like there's a lot of ways we could talk about the eliminator format. I actually already started doing a big write-up on it. I think eliminator is super fun. But I think one of the simplest strategic things I could say is I don't know that there's a better format for zero RB out there. I think everybody's going to think you want to play for floor. A lot of times we think about running back as a floor pick. Those of you who are, zero RB pilled know that drafting running backs early is not a floor play, right? That is the risk. That's adding and taking as much as I love Christian McCaffrey, taking a 29-year-old running back 101. We do that for the legendary upside, as my buddy Pat Crane's site is named, right? We do that for the ceiling, but in an eliminator on a floor situation, there's no doubt that running backs have really extreme floors as well. With Tyreek Hill's ridiculous weekly volume at receiver last year and the way that you can backfill running back, I don't think in an eliminator you need to be perfectly balanced and you need to get production out of every single lineup slot. I think you need to have things that that you can rely on in your roster and among the four position groups, you don't need to be dominant at each of the four. You need to be dominant at like 2 to 3 of them. And I actually don't think it's the end of the world or that big of a deal if you are taking a zero at certain spots, like an RB2 spot. If you take a zero some weeks, I've built a lot of zero RB teams in best ball that have basically not scored any running back points and still been good, still been like top 5. That's really one of the selling points of zero RB is it's a high floor and high ceiling strategy. When it doesn't work, you still have so much redundancy at wide receiver. You're probably like middle of the pack most of the time. But there's also this element where like we need to draft like we're right? If we want to go win the eliminator, we need to have balance throughout the whole season, but we also need to have late season upside. And where do you get that? You get that from late round running backs, right? Like I can build a team that can be a floor team for the first 10 weeks and then be dominant down the stretch. I'm telling you guys, the eliminator is actually my favorite. These guys are loving the intro. That was an awesome intro. That intro was aggressive. Spin the wheel to drive to a random underdog state. I think that's a fantastic idea too. Intro slaps from Bindles. Glad you guys liked that. Shout out Bob Gilchrist from Fantasy Cares team. He helped me with these graphics. He's fantastic. But yeah, the eliminator is my favorite format to play right now. I don't necessarily think that everyone is playing it perfectly. So that's a big explanation of why I have Tyreek Hill at 101. That's what this show is going to be a little bit, is me trying to defend some of the picks that you're going to see that I've already made, right? Not picks that I'm making necessarily or drafting on stream. You're going to have to see why my build is what it is. And so here at the 4-5 turn, again, I was talking about like sort of high floor picks. I think you can strongly justify early quarterback in the eliminator because, again, I think it's a high floor move. I think that's something that, like, I didn't like the early quarterbacks in the last couple of or last year's ADP, but the argument was, I mean, it definitely raises your floor. You're definitely going to get quarterback points. You don't have to just like hope and pray in the later rounds. I think generally speaking, people are going to think through the eliminator as like, well, I maybe want 3 quarterbacks and maybe want 3 tight ends. But again, this idea of drafting like you're right, if you go hit an elite quarterback or an elite tight end, maybe you can still do a 2-6-8-2 or something like that, 2-7-7-2, because you're going 0 RB. Take 7 running backs late. Build this team like it has late season upside, but also high floor because it has a star quarterback and those types of things. So I say that as I see Stroud here. I don't know, I don't necessarily want to completely shy away from stacking, but I don't know that I want to stack Stroud and Collins together, particularly as Houston has a late bye. That's one of those things that, as you think through the eliminator, it gets trickier the further you go down the line. If I'm going to stack a QB and a wide receiver, I think you can still do that. Probably thinner stacks, maybe one stack, not a whole team stack. I think you can still do that. I don't think I want to do it at QB. I think I'm just going to take another receiver here. For me, it's not usually Amari Cooper, and I don't have any rankings updated here or uploaded here, but I like Keenan Allen and Christian Kirk a lot. I got to check buys on the eliminator too. We got Miami. We got Houston's late. The Giants are like, I have this screenshot of the buys. Now I'm going back to my phone. You guys are getting a look behind the curtain immediately. So Miami is a week 6 bye. Houston is that late week 14 bye. The Giants are week 11. One of the reasons I would actually like Keenan Allen, because I do think he's a decently priced player at this point, even though it's really crowded. The Bears are a week 7 bye, and the only other team on a bye that week is the Cowboys. So he's like a nice pick and eliminator from a bye perspective. Kind of want to balance out your buys a little bit, I think. And then Christian Kirk is the other one that I like here. He's a week 12. That's a week where there's 6 buys. And I'm actually also going to take Dalton Kincaid here because I like grabbing a high-end tight end where I think there's going to be a lot of target volume for him. He's a week 12 buy. I like Kirk a little bit more than Keenan Allen, but because of that buy element, just kind of wanting to spread these out a little bit, I'm going to go Keenan and Kincaid on this eliminator. I'm going to need you guys to catch me on all my bad picks as well. I'm definitely looking for you guys. This says 2 at the onesies equals dead if you have injury during buys. I don't think that's necessarily true. A lot of the weeks you're talking about like 75% of people advance, especially at tight end. You could take a 0 at tight end and still get, if you have a spike week in a couple other spots, you could still finish like 6th out of your pod. Like, I don't think that's impossible. I don't think it's particularly likely. Certainly 2 QBs can be a problem. But again, this is a thing where, like, yeah, if I have a major QB injury, then I'm probably not going to bank this anyway. The thing about the eliminator, everyone starts thinking about floor. They start thinking about these types of things. And my argument would be like, we still have to draft like we're right. We still have to draft for upside. We still have to consider that, like, things are going to have to go right for me to win this tournament anyway. I'm not going to win this tournament by a bunch of contingency planning. I'm going to have to win this tournament by taking some stands and having some things go right and building around that. And so I actually think it literally, I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm saying it's not, then that's unfortunate. It happened to you and you struggled. David's getting a little chippy. We're in the first 10 minutes of the first show. He threw the bet on the end there. Got a little snap, I think, with that as well. But yeah, definitely not saying it's not possible. I'm saying you need to consider that's one of the risks you're going to take on when you make these types of decisions. Love these comments from you guys. Historical anomalies, hit the subscribe. 111 watching, 198 subscribers. I appreciate this. This is a new channel. Subscribe, like. This is all stuff that I needed to mention at the top as well. I appreciate you guys helping out the YouTube channel. Tyler also mentions 100 plus watching, less than 50 likes. Go ahead and click that like button. Would really appreciate that. You guys are fantastic. Let's go back out of here. I'm going to probably time out. 14 minutes there. What else do we got? 12 minutes. All right. BBM, 12 minutes remaining. Let's jump in here. Where am I even picking from? 101, Christian McCaffrey. I went Diggs, Waddle. Now, you're going to see a lot of my teams are going to look similar. They're going to have a lot of wide receivers in the first 5 or so rounds. I'm trying to mix up those names somewhat. That's probably why you're seeing Diggs here. Not a guy I'm super high on. Waddle and Neighbors would be my strong preference there. But I took a lot of Neighbors and a lot of Neighbors in the 3rd round. And eventually you're like taking some other guys. I do think Diggs is an interesting play. The way they restructured his contract, the way that he's wired, a lot of those types of things that are maybe not, strong statistical points. But you can also look at his targets per out run, his weighted targets per out run. That stuff has been consistent. The efficiency has bounced up and down with Buffalo. He's on a new team now. It's going to be different. But I think his ability to earn volume, staying consistent all 4 years in Buffalo, suggests that he hasn't really lost a ton. It's just been an efficiency, bounce around. And he's going to an offense that was highly efficient for everybody. Noah Brown set a career high in yards per out run in this offense last year. So I do think you can be in on Diggs a little bit. We don't get the potential for the Stroud stack. I really do like when you pick from the early parts and you get a Nico or a Diggs to potentially add Stroud here. That Houston offense is just so fun and so easy to stack up right now. He went at 408. Trey McBride falls a little bit in the 4th, goes at 410. It was nice pre-draft when you could get him at the 4-5 turn reliably. I do have the Baltimore-Houston little mini correlation. I could make this into a Mark Andrews team. I like Kincaid a little bit more. I don't take a lot of Andrews. So I think Andrews is an intriguing pick here. And then I also think you need to be making a wide receiver pick here, at least one, arguably 2. I could just go Keenan Allen, Christian Kirk. Let's go Kirk and Andrews this time around. We have to bounce over to that other draft. That's going to set this team up with a 0-1-3-1 start. Maybe not going to be strong enough at receiver. I don't like Pickens. Flat out don't like Pickens in the 4th round when you're talking about an Arthur Smith offense. We've done this before. I'm not even convinced Pickens is good enough to be, a really strong pick in the 4th round in a neutral situation. But we're talking about questionable quarterback play and a questionable offensive scheme. Not something that I want to be messing with in the 4th round. 11 minutes remaining in this puppy. I made so I have some emojis here. I tried to star some of these so we could talk through some, maybe some where I'm not even on the clock, talk through some that I thought were interesting. I put this little writing thing means there's something here that I don't even necessarily like. The star for the most part is like, I like these teams. This one is not necessarily like I love this team as much as there's something interesting about it that's worth talking through. Where am I? 6 hole. Oh, I went Laporta McBride. That's the interesting part. I'm not really quite certain why I went Laporta here. I don't love the DJ Moore as the falling value there. Not really in love with Metcalf. Decided to grab a Laporta share, and then McBride was sliding and didn't really want Pickens. And I guess I just was like, all right, I'm going to build a team with both these guys. We'll talk through double elite tight end. I think it's a really interesting strategy this year. I know that there's a lot of data that suggests that it's not optimal, but I'm flying in the face of that a little bit with some of my builds. Laporta McBride is a really aggressive way to try to play that, and it's a lot of capital invested there, especially when you start with a running back in round 1. I really like Bijan Robinson as well this year. This is a fun team ultimately. I actually think Adams and Kirk are both really nice picks in their spots. Adams second in the NFL in targets last year. Again, didn't fall off on the target earning. The efficiency fell off, but he's going to get a quarterback upgrade by my read. I think Gardner Minshew is a high floor type of quarterback in terms of the value of the targets that he puts out there for his receivers. And if O'Connell beats him out, then O'Connell's playing good. I mean, then that's a good thing too. O'Connell finished the year pretty well, and Adams finished the year well with O'Connell. He had that big game in the fantasy playoffs. I think he's an interesting bounce back candidate in round 2, later round 2. I take him usually when he slides a little bit more than this, but I took him here at 19. This is an interesting build. It's not my favorite. That's why I put I didn't put the star next to it. I put the other emoji. Now we're staring at Calvin Ridley, who is not a pick that I've made, but I need a wide receiver here. Almost certainly. I did already get the 2 tight ends, so the George Kittle pick isn't going to be the move. That would be one I would consider in this range. I think you want to be in before the tight end tier break. I don't think the argument that I'll make, I think later on this stream, is that the top 7 tight ends this year, their profiles, their floor to ceiling, probabilistic ranges, it's stronger than we've ever had for 7 tight ends deep in fantasy football history. And I say that as somebody who has played fantasy football for 25 years in terms of, that comes off a little condescending, right? But like in terms of what's my value add? Why should you be watching this stream? Why should you care what my opinion is? I think that's one of the things that I can offer is I've been playing this game and strategizing about this game for a really long time. See a lot of analysis out there that looks at like the last 5 years of results and then tries to build conclusions. And at a position like tight end, it's really important what's happened over the last 5 years, over the last 10 years, or the last 15 years. There's not a long history of elite tight end production. You go back 20 years, there wasn't anything. Tony Gonzalez was good, but you look at his seasons and you compare him to like Travis Kelce's seasons, and there's not much of a comparison there. Antonio Gates was strong, but those guys were consistently better than what else was out there at that time. They were not, I mean, Kelce and Kittle, those guys broke records for receiving yardage in a season. In between there, you had the Gronk and Jimmy Graham era, which was really when things exploded. And you're like, man, these tight ends, because those guys had some 15 touchdown seasons, some seasons where they were really, really dominant because of TD production. But suddenly you start getting 100 catch seasons, massive yardage totals. Things have changed at tight end in the last 10 years, in the last 15 years, definitely in the last 20 years. And I think things changed in 2023 when you had Laporta, when you had McBride. I think the thesis with Kyle Pitts still exists. The way the Bills built suggests they're going to treat Dalton Kincaid like tight ends have not been treated throughout NFL history. It's more of a recent thing to throw to your tight end 100 plus, 120 plus, 130 plus times. So there's and then you still have Kelce and you have Kittle and you have Andrews, and those profiles are still very strong. I think there's a really strong argument that the top 7 tight ends this year are better from a profile perspective, from a fantasy football draft perspective than we've ever seen. And actually, when I say I think there's a strong perspective, I don't think it's a debate, honestly, but I'll go ahead and at least leave a little bit of uncertainty when I say that I think there's a strong case for it. I'm going to take Rome Odunze here after my long argument about these 2 tight ends. Get a little rookie upside in with Devontae Adams and Christian Kirk. Odunze, really intriguing profile. We get him behind Brian Thomas and Ladd McConkey in this draft. I just have Tyler sitting on the stream. That's hilarious. The chat's like, dude, figure it out. This is my first stream, in case you guys aren't aware. We get Brian Thomas and Ladd McConkey coming off the board ahead of Odunze. I think we have jumped the shark a little bit there. I understand the target potential for those guys. I think the Rome Odunze profile is so good. I mean, all you have to say is like Keenan Allen, who I'm high on, has had a lot of injury issues and is like, I think he's going to be playing his age 32 season. I mean, he has a little bit of a hamstring issue this year. What does that mean for where would you value Rome Odunze if you knew that Keenan Allen was going to miss 8 weeks with a hamstring issue? I think that's an intriguing thought experiment, right? I think he'd be going ahead of Ladd McConkey and Brian Thomas. All right, let's go back. Let me go into my app. Everyone who's in drafts with me is probably so pissed because I'm just sitting on the clock anything that was not going to expire before I came on here, I just left. I still have an hour and a half until my next one. We are going to probably do about 90 minutes here today. So we'll pop back into the picks in a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Still on the clock in 15 drafts. A lot to get to, but I want to talk to you guys for a moment. I have not been paying much attention to the chat, or as much as I should, or as I intend to usually, because I've been trying to fire off some of these picks. Glad to see that you guys really enjoyed the intro. That was cool to see. Again, shout out Bob Gilchrist, who is the man. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. We're definitely going to try to build this this channel up a little bit. The idea is this: for those of you who don't know, Matt asks, did I take the trip to Oregon, slow max the Chihuahua? I live in Washington. I can't draft live, but I realized last summer, or through ship chasing and conversations, that as long as I'm in a different state, I can enter these drafts and do them as slows back home. So I did last Wednesday, make the drive down to Oregon. It's about a 2.5 to 3 hour drive for me. Cross over the border. I entered 20 Best Ball Mania drafts. I entered 10 Chihuahuas, 10 puppies. I just wanted to throw some in those. Thought that would be fun. And I entered 5 eliminators. I kind of wish I would have entered more eliminators. I already told you guys, I think that's probably my favorite contest right now. I think that's the most exploitable. You always get these new contests, a little bit of different rules, different, strategy. I think that's where you can find your edges, right? That was the case with with like Battle Royale once that started, and daily underdog drafts were starting, and you go back further and you say, well, when DFS was starting, I mean, there was huge edges. Anytime there's a new contest and a new thing and people are still kind of playing it the way you play the other thing or the old thing, you're getting a little bit of an edge, I think, and a little bit of an advantage. I don't know that, that's strongly the case with the eliminator, but I think it's possible, and I think it's worth considering, and I think it's something that I do feel is fun to think through. It's a fun format. It's I've always liked eliminators. I like survivor pools. I like all that stuff. We do a huge eliminator with my buddies for the March Madness every year, which is fantastic. It's just a fun thing trying to survive. So that's what we're at right now. I have 45 drafts going, all slows. We're going to make those picks. We're going to talk through those builds. We're going to talk through what the heck I'm thinking. Most of those picks right now, because I entered these last Wednesday or whatever, are in the 5th, 6th, 4th round, like you guys just saw. The idea for this show and stream is going to be, will be the slow best ball stream. We'll make these types of picks live, and then we're also going to do a fun little, randomizer game that I teased a little bit. Some of you guys saw in the title and in the description. Essentially, we're going to spin a wheel with all the teams on it, and we're going to talk a little bit. There's going to be a couple things. First of all, we're going to play a little game, me and you guys. As soon as that team comes up, we're going to do the Remember That Guys segment, because that's one of my favorite things. We're going to talk about, I just got done saying I've played fantasy football for 25 years. We're going to talk about guys that were fun from this team 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Mainly fantasy football stars, old school guys. So if you get, Washington comes up and talk about like how Chris Cooley or whatever, we throw out some old names. That will be a fun little segment. It's going to be 5 minutes. But the idea of the spin and the team is that we're then going to talk through that team a little bit. We're going to talk through them from a 2023 perspective and from a 2024 perspective. I think, again, to this idea of why should you listen or watch my streams, or what value can I add? One thing that I think I can add, because I write the Stealing Signals article all season, is on the team level and thinking through the way that a team's season played out. A lot of those really important contextual things week to week throughout a season that I think get lost in the off season. We spend a lot of time in the off season talking about full season numbers, end of season finishes. And it sort of assumes that every team or every player or every situation basically hit like a 50th percentile outcome. And this is at least the way that I think about this. So I'm going to pull up a little bit of this in my mind. Is like, we're just going to do like Ben Gretsch's research that he needs to do for his projections and stuff like that on stream. And we're just going to talk through it and that kind of stuff. when we don't have enough drafts to get to and picks to get to and those kinds of things. I'm trying to find the normal distribution here. Investopia. How do I get this into open image in a new tab? You guys got to deal with me being a boomer. Now I got to share my screen again. All right. Share. All right. It's taking me forever to get this up, and I apologize for that. But this is a normal distribution curve. You guys have all seen this. It's a bell curve, whatever. I love the way that they've broken this out. This is why I pulled this up. The first visual here, 68% of all values are within one standard deviation. Those of you guys who don't know standard deviation off the top of your head, I don't either. But the way that I like to think about it is it's like, once you get a full standard deviation away from the mean, you start talking about like variance played a pretty significant role. And so you talk about, okay, 68% are within one standard deviation. I'm focused on the inverse of this, right? 32% were outside one standard deviation. Then you have 95% that were within two standard deviations. You're starting to talk about significant skewing of certain data points within a distribution curve. So what this curve is, if you assume that things are randomly or normally distributed, any kind of data set, you have to assume logically that some of them are going to be impacted more than others by variance. It's like if you did 100 coin toss systems, a lot of them would be 50-50 or close. 68% of them would be within one standard deviation of each other. This is a common thing in statistics. It applies to coin flips. It applies to teams and things like that as well. 32% of your sets of coin flips are going to start to be impacted by variance. They're going to start to be statistically significant away from the mean and the average and those types of things. Oh, good. I missed stats. I mean, look, we're getting into some deep stuff. I remember my first stream. Yeah, we are. You guys are killing me. Not a real drafter until he tapes the week 15 to 17 schedule to a stationary bike. This is all great stuff here in the comments. But my main point here is, especially this two standard deviations thing in the middle, is that we should assume 0.95 is a lot. But our brains tell us that's everything. That's 100%. In a team of 32 teams, 95% is actually 30.4 teams, which suggests that on average, 1.6 teams are going to be two standard deviations away from the mean. Now, what am I talking about when I say teams, or like what stat are we talking about? That's a fair question, but I'm sort of suggesting that there's a lot of different types of stats, and there's a lot of different types of groups that we can also talk about players. We can talk about wide receivers. We can talk about all those types of things. I think in these data sets every year in football, especially because we know how chaotic the season is, it's only 17 weeks. We need to actually talk more about the players that were two standard deviations away. Their numbers were significantly impacted by factors like randomness, by factors like Arthur Smith, by factors like scheme and teammate injuries and those types of things. I see a lot of negativity about Garrett Wilson. What has he really done through 2 years? We got to be honest about the fact that his quarterback for most of those 2 years has been Zach Wilson. I mean, that's an important thing. And so we're going to spend some time on each show, or at least this is my plan, pulling up a team, talking a little bit about that team, talking about ways that I think we should think about that team as not being normally distributed, right? Again, goes back to me writing up Stealing Signals last year, being very into the weekly stuff all year long. I have some strong opinions on that kind of stuff that's a little bit more nuanced. And look, I'm doing a solo stream. This is mostly just me. Stephanie's having a blast here. She says she's done now, but we got some p-value chat. We got why did I pay $60K for a college degree? I just needed a Stealing Signals subscription. This is now a college statistics lecture. It is, I mean, you guys are killing me. It is important to consider, though, right? Like it's interesting to consider that even in the two standard deviation thing there, the 95% of that are inside of that are relatively close to the average, there's at least in a group of 32 teams, there's at least going to be 1.6 teams, usually at least one team. That's pretty extreme for one reason or another. And then we also have the changing league-wide trends every year. We have so many other things to consider. We have the reality that we don't know a lot about about players and their careers and their peaks and what, their health. And some guys' peak will be their first couple of seasons. Juju Smith-Schuster smashed age 21, age 22, and then did nothing the rest of his career. That was his peak, and it was short. Raheem Mostert just had the best season of his career last year. He scored more touchdowns last year at age 31 than he had in every other year of his career combined. And I know a lot of that was, not playing a ton, but he played a lot with San Fran. He played with the Dolphins a little bit before last year. 19 career touchdowns going into last year. He scores 21 last year at age 31. I mean, his peak is 31. Is it 32? Is it 33? When does his peak end? When did it? I mean, I think it started last year. That was the best season of his career by a lot. And so you have a lot of factors to consider for a lot of these different types of players. Let's go make some more picks, though. This is the real reason you guys are here. I didn't want to make this into a statistics lesson, but that is the idea behind why we're going to talk about teams a little bit. We're not going to talk about teams and where I think they're distributed or any of that stuff. We're going to talk about essentially what I think is relevant about those teams. We're going to probably spend a lot of time on their Pro Football Reference pages and just looking a little bit at certain things, looking at some of the assumptions the market's making about pricing about some of these players. I got in a fun discussion with Sam Sherman earlier today and a little bit yesterday about Javonte Williams. And plug real quick, I'm going to end this stream in about an hour, and you guys should jump over. I don't know how I'm going to be able to send you guys over to the ADP chasing stream the way that Pete sent some of you guys over to me from the Best Ball Breakfast, because I don't know that I know how to do that quite yet. But we are going to jump into ADP chasing right after this, or not when I say we, I mean you. I'm going to go watch it. But you got Sam Sherman, you got Pat Crane, you got Davis Maddock. That's coming up in an hour. I had a fun conversation with Sam in our ADP chasing Discord thread about Javonte Williams a little bit earlier today. And I did that whole plug, and now I forgot what I was going to discuss about my conversation with Sam about Javonte Williams. But it was a little bit about Javonte Williams playing time, and he had made a comment that Javonte Williams kind of hovered around 40% snaps. And I know in my head I immediately went, yeah, I mean they did do a big rotation, but that seems a little low. But we have so many of those types of things that we sort of just believe. And anyway, I went and looked it up. He actually played 40% or fewer only 3 times all year. His snap low was 35%, other than a game he got injured and then he missed the next week. And then he played 60% or more in 4 games. He was actually pretty heavily used in terms of snap share. He was hovered in like the 45 to 50% range, probably the most. That was like his median, but had games up over 50%, over 60%. It was Jaleel and P. Ryan who are more bit role guys. I think Javonte's workload last year is being pretty underrated, especially when you think about how positive the Broncos system could be for running back targets. So that's the kind of thing, like if we spun Denver this week, we would probably spend a little time looking at how much Javonte actually played, looking at how many touches he actually got and how inefficient he is or was, because I think he's priced right now where, and they didn't add a lot of competition at running back this offseason. They added a 5th rounder and another UDFA. I think he's priced where, yes, there's some risk that like just because he's not good enough, he never rehabs from that knee, he loses his role. But if he's at all more efficient from, in his second year back after a multi-ligament tear, the workload that he could have, and then the Sean Payton system that loves to throw to running backs and threw to running backs so much last year, and then adds Bo Nix, whose skill set fits that perfectly. The high-value touches for the Denver running backs are going to be incredible this year. And you have Javonte Williams outside the top 100 picks, and I can earmark him for 85 targets like pretty comfortably when I look at his snaps and his touches. This is the one of the stats that was crazy. In addition to the snap stuff, he had like 264 touches, I think it was last year. Both Jaleel and P. Ryan were between 100 and 110. I think it was one of them was 107, the other was 103. They combined for 210 touches. Javonte had 264. He had more than 50 touches more than the other two combined. I think we think about Denver as this three-way committee at running back last year. That's not what it was. Javonte Williams got more work than the other two backs combined. I love this. Our buddy Alex B. Keaton shows up. Gretch is going to learn Blake Watson this season. I have him in multiple dynasty leagues already. Late round pick for me and Sean Siegel on our dynasty draft. I also took him with in a league that I'm now co-managing with my buddy Jacob Sanderson. At least 2 shares of Blake Watson in dynasty. I'm definitely in on this take. He's gonna, if he makes the team, he's gonna be a guy that will fit into this equation very, very well. So that's a little bit of a what might happen as we talk through these teams and that idea. When we get to that idea, let's go do some more drafting. I want to the wheel thing has been explained enough. I mostly just want to spin the wheel so we can remember some guys. So 2 of the ones that I have an hour remaining, I put 2 stars next to, which means I'm pretty excited about those BBM teams. Let's go look at those. Let's go look at these drafts that I am so pumped about. This one started out of the 105. I took Jamar Chase at 5. Breece Hall goes 104 in this one. I got Ayuk in the second round. Excuse me, guys. Excuse me. Ayuk in the second round. I get Neighbors sliding in the third. Zay Flowers sliding in the fourth. He's usually a 3-4 turn guy. Kincaid sliding in the fifth. I think I put the second star on this about when I got Kincaid. I just added Kenneth Walker. But if you go look at these guys by pick value, Walker also well behind ADP. I don't know how small this is for you guys, but he was pick 68, ADP of 62.6. So to add my first running back at a spot where I'd gone 0 RB, 5+ picks behind ADP was nice. Ayuk was a little bit behind ADP. Neighbors is actually right at ADP, but I feel like that ADP is gonna climb. Zay Flowers about 5 picks behind ADP, but he's often gone even at the 3-4 turn, especially since the schedule dropped. You get a lot of Neighbors, Tank Dell at that turn. You get a lot of Lamar, not Neighbors, Flowers, Tank Dell. You get a lot of Lamar, Flowers, Kincaid, a few picks behind ADP as well. And it feels like those tight ends are moving up a little bit. I have starred Burrow here because I have a Chase team and he falls to 77 and is the clear pick by ADP. So I'm sitting here talking about how much I love this team, how I've gotten some guys to fall to me that make sense for this build and all of those types of things. What do you guys think? I mean, I kind of have to add Joe Burrow at this price as well and get myself a little stack. Brian Thomas is the best available wide receiver. I could see going wide receiver 5 here structurally. I already have the tight end. Kittle's gone. We're not, at a point where taking the tight end 2 and is a path I would want to take. I could see taking Thomas. I could see definitely. I like betting on JSN again at this price. Once you get to this range of wide receiver, you're making speculative bets regardless. I think Rashee Rice has fallen too far. Your mileage may vary on that for sure. Curtis Samuel, Cortland Sutton, you get to Mike Williams, you get Tyler Lockett. But some of these guys are going to be available in round 8. I'm going to be able to hit more running backs in round 9, etc. That's a really easy pick. I got to be honest. I think that is shaping out to be a really, really fun team. We got the Burrow Chase. Who do the Bengals play in week 17? I got to think of Pat's mnemonics. Oh, yeah, the Broncos. We got the Bo Nix was old enough that Joe Burrow played him in college is the mnemonic there. Love this start. I'll have to look at maybe Cortland Sutton as an option. Get a little bring back. Although, I mean, we talked about this on ship chasing last week. I'm not like overemphasizing the bringbacks, and I want to be flexible to a running back value there as well. Even though I only have 4 receivers, I wouldn't mind kicking the wide receiver 5 can a little bit, considering I have Chase, Ayuk, Neighbors, and Flowers. That's a really strong top 4. I think it's an intriguing way to build this year, to be a little bit thinner. I know all the data, again, another thing, a multi-year trend. Data shows you want 5 receivers, you want 6 receivers through 10 or whatever it is. I think if you go 4 receivers to start, like I did here, 1, 2, 3, 4, you can start making some bets and kicking wide receiver 5 and 6, kicking that can a little bit. It's just the broader trend. Number one, the past data is telling us we need to have strong receiver depth. That's an important part of best ball. But we also have seen a lot of other trends that have basically said what you hammer early, you can then back off of a little bit. You need to balance out your capital to some degree. Hitting 4 straight receivers to start before a receiver really starts to dry up, and the fact that I got Flowers here instead of a Pickens or an Amari Cooper tier guy is pretty important to me. I think this is a strong enough top 4 that I can justify swerving away from the long-term trends that say you should probably be taking your 5th receiver before like round 10. I think I could go away from wide receiver until like round 12, potentially. I'm not going to intentionally do that, but I do think it's plausible with those top 4. Let's go to the other one that has the 2 stars. Another Best Ball Mania. We are at 9:02 in this one. So this one's been moving a little bit faster. I have Trey Benson and Dak Prescott both starred. Another one where, okay, I have CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, and Diggs, and took Stroud in the 4th. So this is why I did the 2 stars. It was really fun to build this Houston stack. This is a fun little turn here and a little discussion in terms of strategy. I was on the clock here at 4:11 with Stroud and then also Andrews as probably my preferred tight end because of the Houston stack. But I decided essentially that I would have been Yoshi in the one hole here had 1 running back, 2 receivers. I thought it was possible he took an unstacked Stroud because people are very, very high on Stroud. I didn't think it was, strongly likely or anything like that because he has a badge. And I thought there was what I'm getting at is that there was a really strong possibility he would go Lamar Andrews right here. Those guys were Lamar was the highest one or like the best value by ADP. He was at a 42.5 ADP and he had fallen all the way to the end of the 4th. But Andrews is, a little bit of a lower ADP, 52.1. Kincaid was 49.1. He's going about 3 picks higher. And so my thought was, Yoshi might stack these guys up. He also might not go QB at all. He might go Kincaid ahead of Andrews. The whole conversation here is that I was thinking that Andrews would be a nice little bring back on a Houston stack because they do have that week 17 correlation. But also for me, I have Kincaid valued better than Andrews and I'm taking a lot of Kincaid. So it was sort of a decision where I was like, this is a team where I should probably take Andrews ahead of Kincaid, but I don't necessarily feel strongly about that. I could do it. But so the decision for me came down to whether I would take Andrews first or take Stroud first. Ultimately, I decided that I didn't really care that much about the bring back. I didn't think it was that necessary. Again, this gets back to the conversation we had on ship chasing last week. I don't want to go into the whole conversation. Go back and watch that stream if you're really, really interested in that concept. But I was more interested in stacking up Houston in a team stack way, a double stack. And there's also other ways I can play Baltimore coming back late. I could maybe play it through Isaiah Likely and play an Andrews injury. The bigger devastating impact would have been if I took Andrews and then Stroud went on the turn. And so I did think, Paulino here saying I would have taken Andrews. I understand that. And I thought through this, and I did think Andrews was the percentage play. I think a lot of the time we want to err on the side of trying to hit a home run with our drafts. And I think taking Andrews was the way to get the perfect draft the way that I wanted it to. But for me, because of how I value Kincaid and Andrews and really only elevating Andrews over Kincaid for correlation reasons and not really thinking it was that big of a knock to not have Andrews as the bring back and to just have Kincaid, I went ahead and said, okay, I'm going to make sure I lock up Stroud because that's the really important thing for me here. And then I did see the Jackson Andrews thing go. I was a little bummed to see that. I definitely knew that was a possibility. But I also was much more comfortable grabbing Kincaid rather than Andrews once Andrews went than I would have been grabbing anything else if I had gone Andrews first and then Stroud went. I had no fallback plan there. That was the other part of it, is like, how devastated would I be if these guys go? If Andrews goes, I'm not that devastated. If I just read this comment. I love the comment. Discussing slow drafts on stream is actually goated. Love it. Liked and subbed. Appreciate you guys again. Like, sub, do all that stuff. I also laughed because his name is Flatulent Fantasy. That's a very strong name. But yeah, the point I was making there, I think I had finished it up, but I would have been devastated if I didn't get Stroud to come back to me. I was basically counting down the fourth round, hoping Stroud got to 4-11 once I had made the decision at 2-3 to go Nico Diggs. And so I just didn't want to toy with that anymore. I took Stroud. I took Kincaid. I get JSN and Rashee Rice the next 2 rounds. Paul says, then you take Lamar. Is Stroud that much ahead of Lamar for you? No. And actually Lamar's ahead of Stroud for me. So I could have went Andrews, Lamar with the 2 wide receiver bringbacks. The main reason to answer this, Paul, is because I put so much capital into Nico and Diggs. If you go Nico at 211 and Diggs at 302, which I think probably one of those is wrong, right? Because Tank Dell's good too, and I do think Houston's going to be fantastic, but I don't think the market has adjusted enough since the Diggs trade. This is basically where these guys were priced right before Diggs got traded in the big board and stuff. Diggs has slid a little bit into the third, but I think when you pay these prices, you're saying that CJ Stroud just threw for 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, that kind of a season. It's a full season bet on the Houston passing game. I do agree with this idea that you could have came out of this with Lamar Andrews by going Andrews first and getting Lamar at 502 and having some bring back, and it still would have worked. But I did think through this, Paul, and yeah, to answer your question, my thought was I had invested too much into Nico and Diggs. And once I made those decisions, it was really imperative that I got Stroud onto this team. Stroud's not a big rushing quarterback. If Nico and Diggs are both right at 211 and 302, Stroud's right at 4. Like, Stroud's the QB you have to have. Stroud is the MVP of the 2024 season. And so it's that idea of, that's fair, not derogatory. It's that idea of, how many things you have to get right. I didn't want to have a whole nother bet on Lamar. I already had the bet on Stroud. We go Jackson Smith and Jigbo. We go Rashee Rice. We finally get Jalen Warren. Zach Moss and Pollard go at the turn. I have Dak starred here, but I already have a QB. I had him starred in case the turn went Zach Moss, Trey Benson. I don't like Pollard quite as much. Moss does go to Yoshi here. But Benson is the guy I really wanted to pair with Warren. Warren to me is kind of a higher floor play, really nice RB1 and a 0 RB build. I want to add this upside, higher ceiling, lower floor probably play. This rookie, that's a really nice 1-2 running back start in a 0 RB build. So we have the Stroud, Lamb, Nico, Diggs, JSN, Rashee Rice, 5 strong wide receivers there. Obviously, Rashee Rice, your mileage may vary. But we get the stack, we get the double stack, we get all that. We get a really good tight end in here with Dalton Kincaid, and now we're starting our 0 RB build with Jalen Warren and Trey Benson. You're going to let me do that? Like, that's why we got 2 stars on this team. That's when I say you're going to let me do that, I'm not talking to the room or anything. I'm talking about ADP right now, right? Like, this is why so many of my teams that you guys are going to see are not going to be taking more than 1 running back in the first 8 rounds. I think I've only taken 2 running backs in the first 7 or 8 rounds, a couple times out of these 45 teams. So you're going to continue to see that theme. And it's because I think Jalen Warren and Trey Benson is a really strong 1-2 punch relative to, what you have to pay to do something in the 4th and 5th round to get 2 earlier running backs, or God forbid going, RB to start. I have taken some teams where I've done some early RB stuff, but I probably overstated how few of those I've done. I did a Breece Hall JT team. I've done some 2-3 turn stuff with Achane and Kyron, because I think both those guys are undervalued at the 2-3. So you get a Lamb, Achane, Kyron start is really appealing. But But yeah, just again, this wide receiver room with Kincaid and with Stroud stacked up, and then Jaylen Warren and Trey Benson are your first two running backs. I like what this gives me flexibility-wise going forward, knowing wide receiver is not the position I want to be chasing in the double-digit rounds. I'm very comfortable adding to my running back build from here. Let's go back to the active drafts. Let's see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Man, I think I had 15 when I came back over here. I think I just got on the clock in 2 more. I got to start doing these picks quicker. We're going probably a little too slow. But before I jump into any more, I do want to hit on some of your guys' questions. I love that you guys are here chatting with me. I'm scrolling back up a little bit, I guess, to where I was showing the normal draft curve stuff. We got all sorts of funny comments up there. T-test, please, etc. Let's see. Did I have any big questions? Always enjoy your projection podcast with Leone. Thanks. Historical anomalies. Those will be coming in the next couple of months. He and I have not gotten in the lab yet and put together a time period on that yet, but I'm strongly looking forward to that too. I think projections are going to be a really important tool as we go forward because the drafting market has rightfully shifted toward player profiles more than team projections, which, me and a lot of other people were writing for years. Projections can be a little bit flawed in full season for full season reasons. But I do think we are now in a position where when the projection pros get out there and do their projections, I used to say that derogatorily, right? Like, oh, they're going to come and that's going to ruin people's hate. This guy's going to rise for the wrong reasons and all that stuff. You're going to have so many guaranteed touches and all that. I think there's actually going to be valuable lessons learned that the market is not accounting for yet. We talked a little bit about the Denver running back stuff, for example. I mean, I don't think running, positional target rate by head coach is something that I would really reference anywhere else other than Sean Payton running backs, right? But that matters for Sean Payton running backs. And people who've done projections for 10, 15 years know that matters. Like every single year that matters. Let's see. This is player 2 that Gretchen convinced me to take it so far. Excited to see what venue Javonte decides to assault a photographer in. Woo. I'm glad that I flipped your take. I did not know where that was going to go. So the other one was, got it. The other one was Rashee Rice that I flipped your take on. Apologize for that. We got, I actually already hit on some of these comments. You find that you're overthinking everything in these slow drafts. It's definitely a challenge. I try to make these picks pretty fast. Part of the reason for the stream, fun for me to test my own thinking and my own logic and ask myself to answer some questions about my thoughts and get you guys to tell me stuff like what Paul said. Why wouldn't you then take Lamar? And some of, and Paulino saying that he would have taken Andrews. I like that feedback. I want you guys to tell me when I'm making the wrong pick. This is going to be fun. I really am looking forward to drafting this way and having to explain to you guys more. But yeah, when it comes to these slows, we're going to find some of my teams where I probably overstacked buys and all that stuff because I'm actually drafting these fast for the most part. A lot of them I just, I'm opening and I'm just ripping pick after pick. I'm looking at what I have on this build and I'm just ripping pick. I'm sitting here, talking to you guys, but that's not the way that I typically go through it. So I do think it's helpful in slows, and you do want to think more, and your opponents probably are thinking more, and the drafts are probably a little bit tougher because of it being slow and everyone having a little bit more time. And yet at the same time, I don't think you want to overthink. I think that's really important. Gretsch Alpha's the best alpha. Appreciate you, Bindles. Nick says he thinks their scenarios where Stroud is who you need. That take is right, certainly, but it's also very possible for Nico Diggs to go 1,208 each, be fine picks, and Stroud to only get 4K, and I assume a small number of TDs. I think with Tank Dell there as well, and with everything we know about Stroud as the player already, I don't disagree with this, but this is a really thin thing. This is like swimming against the current. This runs against that idea of minimizing the things you need to get right. If you tell me Nico and Diggs are going 1,208 each, I want to be in on the Stroud bet because I'm very confident that, in 95% of outcomes, Stroud's a strong pick there. And of those 95%, in more than half, he's like the pick there, right? Like he's the MVP, like I was saying. And so you start thinking about it probabilistically and you go, I don't want to get this nuanced. I don't want to start to, I see where you're at, Nick. And that's why I wanted to click on this comment and talk through it. But I think it's important to not try to be this precise is really what it comes down to. It's something I've had to learn in the last few years, especially with the advent of best ball. When Pat, my buddy Pat Crane won the $2 million, that was a big thing that I emphasized to him as far as my own personal takeaways. And when we talked about on ship chasing and stuff, I was like, man, I couldn't have drafted this team because it took humility for him to draft some of these players. And there were players that I was so principled against at that time. It's an important part of best ball. You're not going to be right about everything. There's a lot of chaos, all that stuff. You want to make probabilistic bets. You want to be willing to draft guys that you're not necessarily, interested in drafting. But when you start to lean one way with a specific team, and this is why I bring up Pat's thing, when he built that specific team, he leaned into picks that he didn't even necessarily love. Famously Tyquan Thornton. That's the only time he drafted him that whole summer, and he hit his lineup, I think, at the right time. I don't know if it was in the final or the week before. I think it might have been in the final. And there's some other stuff with it as well. I think that DJ Moore, he wasn't super into, but he had him as a bring back on the Tom Brady thing that he had. And it was just, when he talked through that team, it was like, man, this is such drafting skill. And that's why all of us are so, happy for him to have won that and everything. I mean, the guy, Leone, I've seen share too. Like he did the exact strategy that he talked about doing with the 2 running back thing early. I mean, it was incredible. And there's such drafting skill and so much humility and intelligence in terms of making the bets the right way, gets his money in good, wins the whole thing. That's an important thing. And it relates to this comment here about Stroud. We need to understand, humility-based drafting and those types of things. What's the argument for Trey Benson being a smash this year? He's a really athletic dude. I really like the what I saw from Jonathan Gannon and the new coaching staff in Arizona last year. They started the year with, Josh Dobbs. He has a great run and kind of out of nowhere, right? And then when Kyler came back late in the year, Trey McBride was rolling. There was a lot of positive stuff I thought that we didn't see with the Cliff Kingsbury years. I'm a little bit optimistic about the Cardinals offense potential. And then you have James Conner being a little bit older. He's coming off a career year. He's coming off the first 1,000-yard rushing season of his career, 5 yards per carry, best YPC of his career. Tons of reasons to think that James Conner's hitting a late prime, like I was just talking about earlier in the stream with Raheem Mostert and some of those guys. But I do think this is a very traditional 9th, 10th round pick where you're going, okay, day 2 draft capital, athleticism, clear number 2. They didn't add anyone else. He's the handcuff, maybe even has some standalone value, but he's now the handcuff behind an aging starter, right? I just said a lot of favorable things about James Conner, but this we've told the story a million times, and this guy has hit before. That's the argument. It's the explosive rookie handcuff behind the aging starter who has taken a lot of work over the last few years, and maybe this is the year where the wheels fall off for him a little bit. That argument misses sometimes too. The starter doesn't always get hurt. The backup is not always good, right? Like you can go back to the Nile Davis and the Ben Tate, and like we've had this athletic backup not be a guy before. It's happened plenty of times, but the argument for him being a smash is, I think, pretty straightforward, and it was what I just kind of mentioned. Return to Boomer, I love that. Yeah, Nick kind of played it out here too. James Conner, old, Arizona fun. We don't really know if he's good or bad, and we want to bet on him being good. I mean, it's an uncertainty bet for sure. Why is Ayuk not ranked ahead of MHJ and London? Every data point historically, projections and lines I've seen refute those rankings. I don't know how you can say every data point. This is a great example of, I think, too much emphasis on the player. 3+ yards per out run, anything on a per out run basis is massively favorable for Brandon Ayuk. And yet he had this incredible breakout season. And in doing so, he was 30th in the among NFL wide receivers in targets. He only played 16 games, so that's not entirely fair. But a lot of the guys short, like right above him, only played 16 games as well. 105 targets for Brandon Ayuk last year. That's the whole thing, right? They're going to win. They're going to be ahead. They're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball even when they're behind a little bit. Like Kyle Shanahan likes to run the ball a lot. And they also have a bunch of other really good players. He was wildly efficient on those 105 targets, and you want to bet on efficiency. I'm not saying to be out on Brandon Ayuk, but you want to start talking about projections-based stuff. How high do you want to take Brandon Ayuk? How many targets can he get? He was incredible last year. He was awesome. I was so pumped that I had Ayuk everywhere I had him, but I was drafting him in the 5th round. You're drafting a dude in the 2nd round that probably can't get 130 targets unless there's a major injury in his offense, and even still, it gets tricky. Because the guaranteed volume in that offense flows through CMC and then Debo, guaranteed volume. There are weeks where Ayuk is not featured, is not important, basically. If you go look at his game log last year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 through the Super Bowl. He played in all those games. 8 games with 3 or fewer catches. Like, that happens. He also had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games with 100+ yards. He obviously hits on a bunch of big plays. He does a bunch of incredible things. But in this offense, he's going to have games with 3 catches or fewer. And that still matters, man. Like, targets are the lifeblood of fantasy. Fantasy Douche's old article still is a thing. Like, you need a lot of volume to be a superstar in fantasy football. You have to catch a lot of passes. I don't necessarily want to bet on him to be as efficient as he was last year, even though I think he's a superstar. Because he was incredibly efficient, 3+ yards per out run. He had never had 2+. If I'm not mistaken, maybe I'm saying this is one that I want to double check the stat on before I believe he had not had 2+ yards per out run in a season yet. That's correct. His career high was 1.91 in 2022, and then it jumped to 3.01. Really good per route run stuff, man. Yards per out run, 13.3, jumped 3.5 yards from his previous career high. Yards per target, 3.5 yards higher than his previous career high. And I mean, like, it was a breakout. I want to bet on him being better than his previous career high prior to 2023, but I don't know if I want to bet on him being able to do what he did per target per route last year. And so when I say every data point, historically, projections, lines I've seen refute those rankings, I would disagree with the projections. Drake London, I haven't done my projections for Atlanta yet. I'm going to project a massive increase in pass rate. I can almost guarantee I'm going to have Drake London not just projected for more targets than Brandon Ayuk, but by a lot. Now, the MHJ thing is a little bit more tricky. I do think MHJ has a similar issue here where, like, and the way I've made this case is even with rookie breakouts, even if we assume a Jamar Chase level breakout or Justin Jefferson level breakout, both Chase and Jefferson in year 2 added at least 2 targets per game over their year 1 breakout. That's a significant jump in volume from year 1 to year 2. As a rookie, you don't see the massive target rate usually. You do probably down the stretch, though, and I think that's the tricky part with MHJ in best ball is I do think the late season stuff is very fair. We saw that with Chase. The way that I would describe that is, we talk about the like first read target stuff. You probably as a rookie have to wait until the second half of your rookie season to start getting that first read target deference. You have to start to be the guy, right? Like, and that's why the data shows that. The other reason the data shows that is just playing time. And I don't think that's going to be an issue for MHJ like it wasn't for Chase. But it's not just playing time. Like, so A.J. Brown, for example, played 40% to 50% of the snaps in his first 4 games. Then he was in the 60s his next 4 games. It wasn't until week 9, week 10 that he actually played full snap shares. And then from then on, he's like the wide receiver 2 in PPR his rookie year. And it's like, why were the Titans not playing this guy from week 1? That's part of the reason we see the late season trend with rookie wide receiver production is just that sometimes these guys are not being used enough early. But even for guys like Chase, who played a ton early, one of the reasons we see it, I think, is you just get the team starting to then draw up plays for these guys more. Once they prove themselves in the first half of the year, down the stretch of their rookie year, they start to get relied on more. That can probably happen with MHJ. That can mean that his production will be back weighted. I've taken him in a couple spots. I've started to buy in a little bit. But I think Ayuk and MHJ should be very similarly ranked. London is a projection thing for me that you're not going to get me to even put those guys in the same tier. As much as I think Ayuk is probably better, like I know Ayuk is good and I'm guessing that London's good. So from a talent-based perspective, like as much as I want to be more confident in Ayuk, you have to, like, if Ayuk gets traded or something, we can have a different conversation. But that would be my thoughts on that particular conversation. I saw Benjamin ask this question earlier as well. So I just wanted to go a little bit deep on Ayuk there. Let's scroll down a little bit more, and I'm seeing some make sense on some of the other comments that I had. I'm trying to figure out. I don't want to miss any of these good questions. That's this was the thing that I love about these solo streams is I can sit here and answer your guys' questions. You know, I can. You guys know that I'm long-winded on the other streams. I'm always like apologizing to my co-hosts, like after streams and stuff. I'm like, sorry, man, I went like 20 minutes on that one topic. That was brutal. But this is like, I mean, we're over an hour and I feel like I haven't taken a breath, and I love it. I enjoy chatting about football. This is the setting for me to go long on this stuff, which is great. But we are over an hour. I don't think we're going to spin the wheel today. I said we were spinning the wheel. I want to get these picks in on these drafts. Benjamin says, I'm happy. I want to hear this, a bear argument, so I don't get way too overexposed to a second-round guy. I love this mentality, Benjamin. Great name, by the way. Great freaking name. This is exactly why I was pressing Sean on a recent Stealing Bananas about a Dunze, who I was super into. I was like, I want to understand your thinking, man. I don't want to get, over the top. Stephanie said, are you worried at all, Gretchen, worried at all about McBride with MHJ? I'm not, because of what I was saying about the early season stuff. Now, maybe the late season does get tricky where he starts to get more first read targets, but I just think McBride's really, really good. Like he's a film watching take for me. Like with the stealing signal stuff I was talking about earlier, like one of the things I watch every game every Sunday and then I write him up. Trey McBride's a guy that, like, I mean, if you watched all the Cardinals games, you think he was incredible last year. And I think a lot of people do. It's hard for me to see how Trey McBride is not really good in the NFL in 2024. Like, and the bar is like pretty low at tight end and all of that kind of stuff. And that was with Kyler late in the year when he was hitting. Dude looked like Gronk. Like we were talking about on Stealing Bananas every Sunday night. Me and Sean both just loved watching McBride. It was like, maybe there's a little bit of confirmation bias where we both were just like every week we're like, man, who was the most impressive guy you saw today? Oh, it was Trey McBride. Like both of us, who we both watch all the games. And we didn't always do this on the show. Sometimes it was before the show. But like, it was like, dude, like Trey McBride again. Did you see that play he made? Like, he's getting open. He's winning at the catch point. He's so physical after the catch. Like he reminded of Gronk for a stretch there. I think early in the year, he's going to be so important to their passing game that when it's like, MHJ, I think, is good for him because he brings a little bit more attention from the defense. And then when MHJ starts to hit, and assuming that he does, assuming he's a stud late in the year, I don't think it cuts out McBride. I think it elevates. The way that I've described this is I think it becomes Kelsey, Tyreek Hill. I think if MHJ hits like that, you're talking about a 1-2 wide receiver tight end combination like that Kelsey, Tyreek Hill era with the Chiefs. And you're talking about the Cardinals being good. Talking about a good passing game. There's enough targets to go around if this is a good passing game, if Kyler has a good passing season. So from a talent-based perspective on McBride, I would not say I'm worried. I'm confident enough in what I saw last year that I feel like this dude is going to be a star, even if MHJ is good. Man, there's so many good questions. What about Cowing at the 18th round dart? I think it's a little thin, even though I love Cowing, but I can understand that. Did I accidentally auto draft yet? I don't think so. I think I got it down to where everything was at least an hour. Lot of great comments here, but we are already starting to push up against ADP chasing. So let's go make some picks. We're going to start firing some off. This is a Chihuahua. I'm only in the 4th round here. So we started Jamar Chase. I took a Saquon Barkley here, which is, I think I had done that twice. And it's kind of like, and most everyone I know is not in on Barkley. I don't like him at price, but it's kind of like I think I'm higher on him than like Pat and Sean and a couple of the people that are really out on his price in the second round. And so I think, because I've talked a little bit about how I think Jason Kelce might really impact the tush push for the Eagles. So I think Barkley might actually get a lot of, like, I think they may have invested in a running back like Saquon Barkley intentionally to use him more in the green zone than they had with some, other previous backs. And so, like, I mean, he's Saquon Barkley. Like, I think there's some potential for him to actually have a pretty strong TD type season. The receiving's not going to be great, but this is half PPR. Jalen Hurts is going to help his rushing efficiency. I think he's still young enough, still explosive enough that I'm like, I mean, again, this is me defending not going full fade on this guy. I've taken him twice, and both times well behind ADP. His ADP is 15.3. I got him at 21 here, and I did it largely just to get different. I would have, I think on the first time I was tasked with this question of Saquon falling, I think I would have passed on him. I think I would have probably, if we were able to find this draft, I would have taken a wide receiver here. Maybe like a Nico would have went here, but with Adams off the board and Olave off the board, those are two of my favorite later second round wide receivers. Even Debo off the board, which is what helps Saquon fall. I decided to go Saquon. Anyway, Chase, Saquon, Neighbors. Middle of the fourth, Tank is gone. T. Higgins is gone. McBride and Kelce have both gone. So we're looking at George Pickens again. This is one of those teams. So one of the things that I end up doing when I draft like Saquon Barkley is I'm like, well, I already don't like a player on this team, so I'll just start stacking up my exposure to players that I don't like on the same roster. I have not taken Pickens yet, and I honest to God, like, I don't think I can take him in the fourth. But the other next receiver is Amari Cooper, and I was wrong enough on him last year. He had a career season by yards per out run and also had a massive explosive game. In terms of the ideas of what if a guy is, the guy you need, Amari Cooper has been one of the biggest explosive game wide receivers for the duration of his career. Even when he was like having a really tough year against early in his career with the Raiders, I remember he had that game against the Chiefs in like week 7 where he just went off, and I was like, yeah, I was super in on him that year when he was young. And I was like, yeah, the Cooper breakout, it's back. And then he just sucked the rest of the year as well. But he had one just monster game. Like, sometimes Amari Cooper is just feeling it. In terms of best ball and the way that it works, what he did in week 16 last year, not particularly surprising, right? So I think I'm going to throw him onto this build that already has an early running back. I would like to take a tight end, but a lot of times you see a lot of receivers go, and 504 gets tricky. If the tight ends go, it wouldn't be the end of the world if I had one team that didn't take an early tight end. I have probably more that have 2 early tight ends in the top 7 than have 0. The other move would be to go down again to this Keenan Allen, Christian Kirk group, or even like you can start to reach all the way into Xavier Worthy territory. Terry McLaurin's a fine pick. I like some of those wide receivers certainly more than Pickens. But I'm going to take Amari Cooper here. Essentially what I'm saying is if I went tight end here, I'd be a little worried about all of the receivers getting back. But it does seem like probably at least Worthy will. But sometimes he goes 4 or 5 turn. And I'm looking at like Jaden Reed, who I don't like. So I'm going to go receiver here. Pray that the tight end comes back. If it doesn't, that's going to be that. This is a Chihuahua, I think. I'm just still taking a long time to make my pick on a short draft. Oh, this is a Chihuahua. Well, they're probably both Chihuahuas. Let's jump into this. We are in the 6th round here. Bijan at 108. Olave, Devonta Smith, McBride, and McLaurin. Was McLaurin a Bijan little mini correlation there. So I got 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers. I don't have any Marquise Brown. And with the Rice Beggs, I did throw Jaden Daniels on there because once I take McLaurin, I think McLaurin is the way you want to play Daniels. A lot of people are taking a lot of Daniels and then backstacking him. It's trickier from a draft perspective, and I don't mind backstacking him, but I actually think if you think through it, If Jane Daniels as a rookie comes out and has a really great year, he's probably passing well. And if he's passing well, it's probably because, I mean, we know he can rush a ton, but if he has a really great year, he's probably passing pretty well. And if he's passing pretty well, there's not a lot else in this passing game that I feel like is going to be good, because Jahan Dotson has really struggled. Sanat and Luke McCaffrey, both really fun prospects and add something, but I feel like it means Terry McLaurin's having a good year. Like the thesis on McLaurin is finally hitting. And so I actually think if you're, really hammering Daniels, you want to probably play it through the front end with McLaurin. I'm not taking a lot of McLaurin. That's just like a take on what I think is optimal for stacking Daniels. So anyway, I'm going to grab Marquise Brown here. Have not taken a lot of him. He's behind ADP. I've taken the other KC receivers a ton. I do think collectively the KC wide receivers are the most mispriced entity in drafts. I've talked about this on a lot of different shows. The Chiefs pass rate over expected and just general pass rate is so high over every year. They throw a ton. Everyone was saying Patrick Mahomes is an underneath passer last year. It was purely because of volume. He threw way more than everyone else. I mean, not more than everyone else, but they asked him to drop back against passing looks, against cover two shells, and drop back defenses because they trust him to be patient enough and take underneath throws. Tom Brady at times in his career is similar, right? Like when you get to be that good of a quarterback, you have to drop back against pass looks, see if they blow a coverage downfield, and then 9 times out of 10, they don't, and you have to take what they give you underneath. But rather than a run for 5 yards, your coach is saying, we trust you to complete a short pass for 5 yards. Most other coaches are just like, we don't trust our quarterback. We're going to run the ball every time. So anyway, the Chiefs continue to stay at a really high pass rate. That lower ADOT, I think, just means more, like fewer explosive plays out of the Chiefs offense, which happened even when they still had Tyreek Hill and the defense has started doing this, this focus on taking away explosives that has become the norm across the whole league. At that time, even Tyreek Hill's ADOT was coming way down. You had a lot more because you have a lack of explosives. It takes more pass plays to get down the field. You end up getting more play volume on each drive and things like that. I think it helps the overall pass volume. It helps the overall number. It helps the completion rate to be at a lower ADOT. Helps the overall number of completions. They've done a lot of like screens and stuff. I mean, Brown's probably the downfield guy, but anyway, you feel really confident with the Chiefs and who they are as an offense that they're going to throw a ton. That's their thing. And if Kelsey's a 4th round pick now because we don't trust his health and we don't trust any of that stuff, then we're mispricing the Kansas City wide receivers. Full stop. Like we probably still would be if Kelsey was a 1st round pick, but it would make more sense if Kelsey was still being valued as a 1st round pick like he was up until last year. That you have, Xavier Worthy and Marquise Brown in this general range, and then Rice going a little later. But if we're valuing Kelsey where we are, we're valuing Rice where he is because we're really confident he's going to miss half the season to a suspension, then Xavier Worthy and Marquise Brown are both very good values if that's the case. Let's go into some more drafts. Let's go. There's a puppy that's 2-hour clock. You can just fire off this. Hey, we got Graham Barfield right there in the middle. There's a name I know. Jamar Chase, Saquon again. Malik Neighbors, Christian Kirk, Keenan Allen. Very similar situation. Olave was on the board here. Where's Olave? What am I missing? You guys seeing Chris Olave's name on this board? I feel like I've looked at this 3 or 4 times and I still can't find where Chris Olave is in this draft. So I keep looking back at the chat like someone's going to tell me that I'm missing Chris Olave, right? I took Saquon in the late 2nd, and I had said on the last stream it would have been because Olave was gone. You can scroll to the right. He went 12. Thank you, Neil. 12 holes missing. You guys scroll over. There we go. You all came through at the exact same time. Yeah, I thought he went 112, but I was kind of confused. I've zoomed so far in. Listen, I'm not an elite streamer yet. Yet. Probably ever. Olave at 112 here. So anyway, similar discussion to the last one with Saquon. Kind of who was on the board, and this must be I think the only other one where I've taken him. And I end up getting Neighbors in the third. I get Kirk, Keenan Allen. I've talked about those guys as well. So we have a 1-4. I don't have a Texan, so I don't think this is a Stroud pick. Jordan Addison's an intriguing pick, but I've mentioned this before. I want to get these tight ends where I can. He's the last of the group here. To get Kittle a little behind ADP as the last of the group of the top 7, the elite 7, as I would think of it, is a big pick there. That's a relatively easy one. We're 12:25. This stream has gone quick. I don't want to keep the ADP chasing guys holding. I want you guys to get over there. That's obviously some incredible content. I'm probably going to jump back on and do this again like Wednesday. I'm thinking maybe I'll do Wednesday and Friday this week because these drafts are going to continue to go. I've had a lot of fun with this. You guys have had a lot of fun with this. I want to do a number of these streams. But let's jump into a few more of these. We didn't get to spin the wheel. We didn't get to do a lot of the things that I wanted to today, but we still had a lot of fun. That stuff was more like if I ever have some dead time to fill. But I don't know that we'll ever actually have that kind of an issue. I have Anthony Richardson starred here. I have Kittle and Richardson starred in the 6th here. Where am I? I'm at the end of the first round. Oh, this is the team where I got Puka and Garrett. It's a really fun start. I go Devonta McBride, Xavier Worthy. I don't really know why I would have Richardson start. I guess it's just ADP value. He was sliding a little bit. I got McBride. I don't really have to have Kittle. This is an intriguing spot. Scroll the F over. Love that FF Doom. This is one. I don't know. What do you guys think on this? This one where I want to go because this is a Puka Garrett. Seems rare, right? I don't want to mess this up. I think Anthony Richardson solo as the ADP value is kind of a dynamic pick here. Even without Michael Pittman, I can go Josh Downs or AD Mitchell later. I don't really have to go wide receiver 5 with this much strength. Tight end 2 would be fun, but I was just talking about how good Trey McBride is. You take him at 39. Kelly likes Richardson. You win, Kelly, because that's what I wanted to do anyway. With that mobility, man, I haven't got enough of him. You don't even need to stack Richardson. AR, the chat. I do this with starting all stars and players that come back a few days later and can't figure out why I started them. I do the exact same thing. AR makes sense with not many other QB stacks set up. That's a good point that I didn't even consider. But KC, Philly, I mean, Rodgers and Stafford are reasonably priced. You can grab one of those guys, but they'll be a good QB too. Could take Kyler if he came all the way back, but we did it. We went Anthony Richardson there. Let's get a couple more picks in. Then we're not going to get all these done, I don't think. I'll have to let you guys go and hit up ADP chasing. Amon-Ra, Taylor, Diggs. So this is not a good pocket for a receiver. Structurally, I want to go receiver here. But once you get Flowers and Higgins off the board, again, Pickens, Cooper, now you're reaching all the way into round 5. And what I do have is a fairly priced Trey McBride. I don't really need an excuse to draft more Trey McBride. Let's go do some more BBM. Oh, let's go to the ones that are starred. BBM. Fire off a couple more here. I have Tua tagged here because this is probably one where I went Achane. I went Tyreek Achane with a couple. I thought that was kind of fun because of how concentrated Miami can be. Diggs, McBride, Cooper Addison. We're early 7, so we're not actually taking Tua yet. I haven't taken a lot of Keon Coleman. I also haven't taken any Aaron Jones, who I think is... Oh, I have Addison on this team. I think he's kind of a fun pick. We can talk about him another time. Sort of a weekly ceiling, but not really a consistent weekly kind of star, because I don't know if I can bank on the volume or even the health weekly. But I do like the weekly ceiling still there. I have Kyler and Stafford queued up here. I must have Puka Harrison start, which is a week 17 correlation. Zay Tank, another week 17. Xavier Worthy, Kittle. Kyler's behind ADP. We're going to make that pick. That's why I had him start, was if he came all the way back in the 7th. I remembered starring him on that one. Maybe we can get through these real quick. Garrett London, Higgins, Derrick Henry. Ooh, Derrick Henry's a fun one to talk about. We'll have to talk about soon too. I'm kind of getting into, at this stage of his career, for me to finally be in on Derrick Henry, man. Keenan Allen goes 5'11". I almost get the fall that I would have snatched him up there. But I do have Terry McLaurin still here. I was just talking about liking him a little bit. He's behind ADP as well. I do need a wide receiver 4 at this stage. Tight end. Ooh, I still have Kittle too. So we're going to go. I don't have a Houston. I don't have a reason to go Stroud. We're going to go McLaurin, and we're going to grab Kittle, and we're going to get the... Oh, I'm not on the turn. Hopefully Kittle doesn't go. I thought I was at pick 12. I was going to get the 2023 week 17 correlation. Let's see. One more BBM here. Puka, Taylor, Laporta, Higgins, Keenan, and I took Kittle. So this is a 2 tight end build already. Only has 3 receivers. Has Taylor. This needs a receiver, and there aren't any. I guess Christian Watson. I don't really like Christian Watson, but this is where we're going to do the humility-based drafting and take a share of Christian Watson. Need to get a receiver there structurally. BBM, go to draft. Lamb, Kyron, Achane. So this is, I talked about this earlier. I've done this build a little bit, and I took a McBride in the 4th because I just love that price falling way to the end of the 4th. Keenan Allen, 502. 2 receivers up until the 6'11". These are 3 different ways I could play QB. So I was telling myself, I think I actually had 4 different ways to play it, but I was telling myself I needed to get QB value. What I absolutely need is another wide receiver. We're going to take a share of Ladd McConkey, which I haven't been doing a lot, but with Lamb and Keenan as sort of veteran target earners, a rookie kind of upside pick there makes a lot of sense. We probably will hit a receiver on the way back there. All right, guys, a couple Chihuahuas, a couple eliminators. We'll talk about the eliminator a little bit more. I want to write up an article about that. I know I got close to finishing this, but our viewership numbers are dwindling. I'm sure the guys over at ADP Chasing have already started. I want to let you guys get over to them. I do real quick want to say thank you so much for coming. I hope we see you guys again. I hope I'm back Wednesday-ish, maybe Friday. I don't know. Like, subscribe, all of the stuff that is good for YouTube streams. It really does mean a ton. And my channel is just starting out, doesn't have a ton of subscribers or anything like that. So anything is a major help. Appreciate you guys hanging out. We're going to do more of this. We're going to spin that wheel that I was talking about. We didn't get there today, but a lot of fun stuff coming. Peace to all you guys. Let's find that outro music. Later.